Outstanding. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the capstone of the Summer of Speed webinar series from Broadsky Networks. This is number 3 of 3, where we've talked about advanced wireless networking. And the point we were trying to make across this Summer of Speed is the concept that LTE has been around a long time now. Everyone has one in their phone, everyone has one in their pocket, and it's become uniform. And there's a perception that LTE is what it is, and maybe it is what it was in 2015 or 2016. But like all things in tech, technology advances quickly, and wireless is no exception. So we've talked about category 18 routers that bond 4 different frequencies together, and we've talked about routers that bond 2 different or 4 different signals from 3 different carriers to get maximum download speed. Today we're going to talk about applying some of those applications, but more in a mobility aspect. But the larger theme around this is that wireless isn't what it was. Wireless is turning into what it's going to be. We're on the pathway to 5G, and it's going to be a tidal wave that's going to swamp a lot of industries. It isn't going to be here as fast as the advertisements would lead you to believe, but it's on the way. And the interim step that we're at right now is download speeds in the 100 to 150 meg range, and you can start combining those together, as well as switching between carriers as you move, and grabbing wireless signal to power high-powered applications that you maybe wouldn't have thought of before is where we're at now. So that's what we're talking about. And the reason that Broadsky can deliver these things is because we're a sole purpose wireless provider. This is all we do. And so we're always on the front edge of what's being introduced by the carriers. Our job is to learn it and then get it out to the channel. And then the channel's job is to bring the future into the now, if you will, and say, Mr. Customer, I don't know if you realize this, but I can get you blank. And so we're here to kind of fill in the blanks, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We have 4 voices on the phone today, or on the webinar today. This is our first 4-voice presentation. Myself, Bo Barker, Ron Ireland, the president of Broadsky, is going to speak, and then right at the end, Maureen Donovan is going to talk about our spiffs, and there's a drawing. So you're definitely going to want to stay tuned for that. Okay, so let's get started. Here we go. A little bit about Broadsky. We were founded in 2003, so we've been at this for 17 years now. We're headquartered in Bend, Oregon. There are fires nearby, I'm told. And we've been on the Inc. 5000 list now 4 years in a row. So that's an objective measure of, I guess, our service offerings being rewarded in the marketplace. We've also won the MSP 501 award 2 years in a row. And so again, an objective realization that Broadsky is at the front edge of delivering solutions. The Broadsky is a family of companies. Our 2 sister companies are TechLink, the Professional Installers Network, and TechLink Solutions. TechLink Installation handles white glove installs. If we need to, for instance, deploy 300 sites over a 2-week period and they don't have the hands on the ground to actually, boots on the ground to actually do that, then TechLink can walk those in and install them for the customer. And TechLink Solutions is our applications development arm for custom software builds, exporting data from our systems into CRM systems, and also the engine behind Wireless Window, which we'll talk about a bit. So all told, about 100 people strong and distributed across the country. And so that's what Broadsky is about and what we do and how long we've been doing it. Our agenda today, we're gonna talk about mobility and then target customers and then highly available connectivity. And the concept behind highly available is, the driver is that we're gonna not just connect you to one carrier as you move, we're going to connect you to multiple carriers as you move through different coverage zones. You're going to have that same smooth experience wherever you go versus running into dead spots. Then we're going to talk about the Speed Fusion, Unbreakable Internet, and WAN smoothing. That's a PepLink product. This is the kind of thing this is advanced cutting edge wireless, where you're starting to bond wireless connections together and also do some forward error correction to make your wireless connections as reliable as your fiber connections that you're putting out in the field, or your MPLS connections as we replace them. Then we're going to have sort of a summary wrap up from Ron, and then Maureen's going to talk about the spiffs, and we're going to go into a Q&A. On the Q&A piece, the way you ask these questions is you can either ask a question in the Q&A box, or you can ask the question in the chat box. And what we do is we read the question aloud for the benefit of all, and then we go ahead and answer it. We encourage questions, and you can just lob them in all the way through as it strikes you, and then we'll go through each one at the end to make sure they're all answered. So we're talking about mobility, but before we get into that, we're not going to spend too much time on this, but the foundation of Broadsky is this. put the right carrier into the right application with the right gear to make sure it works everywhere you go, no matter what. That's the key to wireless. We're not deploying wireless to work sometimes, we're deploying wireless to work all the time. And so the way we do that is we pick the right carrier for the application. If it's going to be in one place, then we do a site survey to make sure we have the right app. If we're moving, then we put the right gear in to shift between carriers. On a fixed location, we put dual SIMs in every deployment. And then on the data management side, although we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, this is, I believe, what one of the things that truly separates BroadSky from the pack is that our data reporting is very robust. Your customer will never be in the dark as to how much data they're using. We work very hard to eliminate surprise bills and unauthorized usage with a variety of tools. If we're not monitoring data usage, then these things can get out of control and customers become unhappy and they stop their rollout. So BroadSky data management team is full-time and it's a very robust reporting system. And then finally, we pool everything. So regardless of underlying carrier, we put it all into one pool and you draw from that common pool. So we know the pool and we're reporting against that pool and we have insight into our usage and our costs. Okay. That's sort of the gold standard from BroadSky. So let's get into the content of today. This is mobile wireless. And why would we use mobile wireless and what industries are there? So a lot of people are moving product outside of warehouses these days, outside of storefronts, outside of malls. They're making their money while on the move. One of the case studies that doesn't show up for this, but is a customer of mine, and it's kind of one of my favorite customers. The guy who sells sunglasses at the Winter Olympics, and he was just at he was at the Indianapolis 500, and he called me from, can't remember where he called me from, but they sell about 1,000 pairs of sunglasses over a weekend, and they use us every time. So they show up, they have a router, they connect to the internet, and they sell sunglasses all weekend long. And he just called me about some account management stuff, but he's been with us for 2 years. He loves it. They're never going anywhere else. And he said, you guys have been really great for us. So it's one business out there, but they're not making their money from a storefront. They need reliable connectivity wherever they go. Transportation, obviously, is another one. People want to track their assets. They also want to track the inventory that's inside of their assets. Sometimes those are dual reporting scenarios. So people want to know where their inventory is, and then the fleet company wants to know where their truck is. And so those two different things need to be reported at the same time. Mobile healthcare is a huge application right now. People are taking healthcare into communities versus, again, that same theme. Instead of having to go to a central location, we'll take the services out to you. You layer on additionally to that the performance that you need, obviously, but also you need HIPAA compliance. BroadSky is fully HIPAA compliant, fully PCI compliant. We pass these audits. We've had these conversations. When people start talking about transmitting data in a regulated environment, a lot of vendors drop off, but we stay in the game. So we can definitely have those conversations about why this is HIPAA compliant. And then pop-up retail and mobile offices. So we'll get into this a little bit in the case study. Pop-up retail is now everywhere. People are taking the product to the people versus trying to bring people to the product. And mobile office, construction, and oil and gas, and I'll focus on construction right now. If you want an easy entry point into selling wireless, it's construction trailers. By definition, there's no internet where they're going many times, or they drag up the wire if they try to lay one down. And so the solution they go to is, let's bring our own wireless router with us. Let's show up on site and have internet as soon as we get there, and then there's no possibility of it cutting. Then after 9 months on the job, pick up the trailer, move it to the next site, turn it on, boom, you have internet again, repeat. I think it's 12 or 13% of our revenue basis is just in the construction industry. It's been a huge entry point. So if you have exposure to that in any way, that's a great entry point for our services. We didn't mention home office as much in this, but in the COVID environment, as everybody moves to their house, while it's not mobile, it's distributed. And to the extent that they need wireless internet or an internet connection that's independent of their cable, or because they don't want to have contention with the kids, or they don't want to have contention with their spouse because they're both working from home, or they need something that's PCI or HIPAA compliant, again, we can drop our wireless services into that office. It will run that home office. It will run completely independent of their current setup. It will carry all the firewall safeguards, all the PCI and HIPAA safeguards, and it'll be much smoother and much higher quality experience, and sort of day-to-day it'll work all the time. So let's not, I don't think this COVID thing is going away anytime soon from what I hear. So again, another great market for BroadSky. Here's an application for mobile healthcare. You see these trucks a lot. This is adjusting my glasses focal length here. So it's mobile health from PDS. I can't tell if it's dental or if it's radiology, but they're outfitting trailers or outfitting RVs, and you walk in and you have your healthcare services provided to you from there versus having to go into the office. If you're running imaging on these, then you need high speed, but not just high speed, you need high speed upload. And you also are going to be moving from different areas that have stronger coverage from different carriers. So as you move into each area that you park and deliver services that day, a different carrier may have the strongest signal. The technology we're going to talk about today starts bonding those together, so you're never out of range of the strongest signal, and then you use the other carriers to supplement. And that gives you a much more uniform experience versus hot and fast one day and not so good the next day when you parked, you know, a mile and a half up the road. That happens all the time in wireless. You need to use all the carriers to deliver a day-to-day experience that's always going to work. This is more of a fleet tracking concept. There's thousands and thousands of trucks on the road right now that are moving product across America. And so one, we want to track that asset, and two, we want to track the inventory inside. We can also connect people so they can track their driver behavior, their fuel load use, where they stop, did they take the most efficient route. We provide the internet connectivity, and then those software programs run in the background. The other key to this with mobile is that we can't be deploying office routers to this. The family of routers that you deploy for mobile is what's called a ruggedized router. And a ruggedized router has attributes that allow it to be put in a truck and, again, run for years. So they have shock absorbers, they have all metal casing, they have heat sinks, and they accept DC power much more readily. They also handle volt surges much more readily, so that the electronics are beefed up. We can also talk about putting little dome antennas on top of the trailer so that that metal box doesn't block the signal as it comes in. And these are all things we've done before and all things we're versed in. So we're not going to learn as we go. We'll be able to make quality recommendations as to the best way to dispatch this, best way to install this. So that's the mobile side. And then finally, mobile retail. This is a trend that is accelerating. If you follow the financial news at all, you see that the mall operators are getting killed. They're actually buying their tenants. I think JCPenney was the last one that was being invested in by Simon Property Group and Taubman and these guys. They're trying to keep the retailers afloat to drive people to the mall because people aren't going to the mall. That had started before COVID, and now COVID is accelerating it. So what retailers are doing instead, they're taking their displays to the people. And I mentioned the thing about, you know, the guy selling sunglasses at a gathering of any kind. But hundreds and hundreds of companies are doing this. And if you look at these displays, especially the Adidas display, that's a $50,000 display, easily, including setup, staff time, transportation, who they're paying to be there, and whatever the entry fee to get in was. They expect to do an enormous amount of business at this over a 2-day period. But by definition, they're not going to get good internet, and they're certainly not going to run this on Square. So a BroadSky router could be sitting inside of that box, and they will have internet the moment they show up. They'll do what they do for a day or 2 days or 3 days, and then they're going to pick it up and move it to the next place, and it's going to work again, over and over and over again. So they can realize their investment versus sending it out to somewhere. You have all these people on staff, you have all these expectations, but you have poor internet, and your signage isn't working, your point of sale isn't working, your experience isn't working. It's very disappointing and has repercussions. So this trend is everywhere. We're not just selling fireworks in the Kmart parking lot anymore. People are investing enormous amounts of money into this type of business. So this is a use case. It's mobile technology for a national trucking company. And the challenge was always on connectivity. The problem that they were encountering is that as you move into coverage zones or a coverage gap, their trucks would disappear. So instead, we put a high quality router in that gets signal from everywhere first. And then second, we put a multi-carrier solution in. And then finally, we used that ruggedized router that I spoke to before. In addition to that, it has what's called a Cat18 modem in it. Cat18 is an industry standard term for bonding 4 different frequencies together from the carrier into one usable download channel. That way you can see across the entire spectrum, and gives you better coverage as you move, and it also gives you better download speeds. So you can see all available frequencies. The carriers are now broadcasting on, I think, up to 17 frequencies now. And so you have to deploy that technology that can see each frequency so that you can get download speed everywhere you go. Okay. And so that was the use case for this particular company. So I'm going to have Bo Barker, who's our VP of Technology, do a little bit deeper dive here on different flavors of this, whether it's dual active SIMs, we're using one carrier at a time, or actually combining things together over the next 3 slides. Bo's been with us since 2014 and sets the tech vision for BroadSky. He's certified on a number of different platforms, and I think you'll be impressed. So go ahead, Bo, take it away.
Awesome, thanks, Tom. So yeah, we talked a little bit about the mobility, the technology behind mobility, and how you can create a ubiquitous deployment for assets that are moving about. And so in this example, as Tom said, we have the ability to load 2 carrier SIMs. That's actually part of our gold standard. That's a deployment, standard deployment for us. In this scenario, both of those SIMs are active. So as the mobile asset transitions from what would be good coverage on one city block, and maybe it moves 3 miles, 4 miles, even 10 miles away, that carrier no longer provides the best signal quality. So the modem will automatically switch over based on our programming to the best carrier that's programmed in there. And then it rides on that carrier until it sees that signal degradation and switches back again. So it's dynamically switching back and forth on a single modem between 2 active SIMs. So you do have that wireless failover, wireless to wireless failover in this mobile deployment, switching between the SIMs. If we take a look at the next slide, and that should show us the multiple carrier bonding. So we have units that are designed for mobility, for mobile assets, and they have either 2 active radios or 4 active radios. In this example, we'll talk about 4 active radios. So we can load more than 1 carrier at a time into these radios active, and then in the same manner as before, as they're transitioning across the geography, this mobile asset, as it's moving across the geography, can dynamically switch between those carriers. Now, what we're illustrating here is something a little bit different. With this technology, we can also create speed fusion, or you may have heard us call it BADAS, bandwidth aggregation dedicated as a service. What that does for us is there is no downtime in switching from one carrier to another in this scenario. Speed fusion creates multiple tunnels, and it sort of corrects those packets as they're traveling along. So as you switch from one carrier to another, there's no drop in connectivity, whether that be a VoIP call or just a traditional data session. It's really seamless to the end user in their experience, and provides that kind of unbreakable internet, even in a mobility solution. Then I think we have one more slide.
Yeah. So the distinction, Bo, between 1 and 2 is that in the previous slide, we were switching between carrier to carrier, but we were only using 1 carrier at a time.
Right.
Or in Speed Fusion, they're all loaded in there, and we're pulling from all 3 at the same time. One of them is going to be providing the most bandwidth, and then the other 2 are supplementing. But regardless of where you go, you're connected to all 3 at all times.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Those get aggregated into that one pipe, so terminated into one location.
Okay, next slide.
So here we have a really good example, really good illustration of some different router types that are able to support this speed fusion technology. And there's a couple different ways, but if you think about speed fusion as if it's SD-WAN, it needs a termination point. And so BroadSky, we create that virtual appliance termination point. Your clients can have a piece of hardware on their premise, but that's not the focus for today. But just know that hardware options are out there, or you can rely on BroadSky's expertise in MSP to sort of manage that end-to-end solution, including the endpoint, the SpeedFusion Cloud host. So in the top left example there, we show all 4 carriers being bonded together in a piece of hardware called an HD4 MBX. So that's either right now, I guess we have top 3 carriers in the U.S. With the Sprint and T-Mobile merger. As new carriers emerge on the market, that could be a fully diverse 4-carrier deployment. What we do today is load the strongest carrier for that geography ×2, and then we have the other 2 backup carriers. So that's all being bonded together into a single pipe, terminated in the SpeedFusion Cloud. Now below, in that example labeled as 3, we have bonded dual carriers. So this application doesn't need the high bandwidth that maybe the mobile ambulance, the mobile healthcare application in one does. So it has 2 carriers. And that could be in a piece of hardware called the Transit Duo. So then it bonds those 2 carriers together in the same way that example 1 did. And then up there at the top right, number 2, this is not illustrating bonding, but it is participating in the SpeedFusion Cloud network. And so what that's able to do is across either bonded or single internet carriers, it does what's called WAN smoothing. So it's creating multiple tunnels and really correcting packets as they transmit out to the public internet or to your private applications. And it smooths out that connection and makes those corrections dynamically in real time, so you don't experience those drops in latency and jitter that you would if you were working on just a straight connection, whether that be terrestrial or LTE. So it's really a great technology to create that ultimate solution for just uninterrupted connectivity. Pretty important for a lot of enterprise applications and for a lot of these mobile applications that they be constantly connected and don't experience drops or interruptions in that data stream. And that's my
Okay.
2 cents on that one.
Very good. Thank you, Bo.
Yes, absolutely.
And we're going to do another transition here to the star of the, if you worked with Intelisys, we entered their custom cocktail contest, and the winners are being announced at Channel Connect, I believe, but it's down to us and whoever the other party is. We made it through all the way to the finals. The star of that video was Ron Ireland, president of BroadSky Networks, and I'm going to hand the presentation over to him on this slide, except I made a mistake. We were going to talk about wireless window. I'm sorry. And that was such a good intro too. But we put this in here, my apologies. Wireless Window is a software program that Bo has been working on for the last 18 months. And Bo, don't let me steal your thunder on this, as I'm feeling stupid about doing my intro one too soon. But Wireless Window is a control panel that you can bring in all this information and see it on a single pane of glass, particularly if we get into multiple devices out there. So you might have PepLink routers and Cradlepoint routers and tablets and phones. And so how do you put that all into one single control plane? And that's the entire intent of Wireless Window, is to be able to see where you're at across all device platforms. A lot of device platforms, so Cisco has it, Cisco Meraki has it, PepLink has it, Cradlepoint has it, but you can only see those devices. And so if you want to see something across all planes, that's the intent of Wireless Window. It's also trouble tickets. You can see your bill, you can see your usage across all devices. If you have SIM-only deployments in customer-owned gear, you can also see that. And so it's a place where you can kind of one control measure for all things. And so that's the Wireless Window product from BroadSky. There's a future webinar coming up on this where we're going to deep dive into it. It's a really elegant piece of software that we're excited to bring out to the market. Okay, pretend I didn't make that mistake and pretend that my introduction just got done. Ron Ireland is going to speak on the next 3 slides, and I'm going to click next. Ron, and go ahead and take it away.
Great, thanks, Tim. And it's good to know that my one contribution to the company has been, a cocktail video. It's I'll take it.
You made the finals.
So hey, thanks for taking time to be with us this morning. I really do appreciate it this afternoon, depending on where you are. We've had the Summer of Speed webinar series that if you weren't able to make the first 2, those are available as recorded webinars. I highly encourage you to take a look at them. In the first 2 webinars, the first one, we had Cradlepoint as a co-presenter, and they talked about a little bit more in depth about their solution, and in particular about 5G and where that is today and where we see it going. We talked about the importance of integrating wireless into your customers' network designs and where it fits and why it's such a good solution. And talking about a completely diverse path into a building for a backup solution, so that you don't have your primary and secondary connections sharing conduit into a building, which are both interruptible by weather and construction events and other things that could take down both connections at the same time. We talked about the speed of delivery on that, and particularly for new locations opening and not having to wait for fiber, having wireless availability and high bandwidth availability very, very quickly for your customers' needs, and being able to run mission critical applications over wireless technology. I mean, 5-6 years ago, this quite simply wasn't possible. The networks weren't ready for it. They couldn't handle the volume of traffic or the speed requirements. Today, it's absolutely possible, and you don't have to wait for 5G to make that happen. We did talk in depth about the rollout of 5G and where it is, and the different approaches that each of the carriers are taking, and where we see that happening. And most importantly, that the point being, we're not there yet. It's coming. It's going to be a game changer. I think everybody sees that, knows that. But it is such a dense network deployment that it's going to take some time for that to happen. And in the meantime, the 4G LTE networks are really performing well. Great article recently, I think it was PC Magazine, talked about testing in, I think, 26 major cities around the country, and those that had been advertised as having a 5G rollout. And in many cases, the 4G network was outperforming the 5G, at least in these early stages. And that's understandable because the 4G network has been built out so well, and it's just more readily available. And speeds are really, really good. And so I think that's important for you as partners, as you're talking to your customers. There's a lot of buzz around 5G. They're asking for it. To know exactly where it stands, what's ready, what isn't ready, is really important. And that was a great webinar for some information there. I encourage you to go back, take a look at that, and then also familiarize yourself with the Cradlepoint product set that you can see there in the lower right. So next slide, please, Tom. Thank you. Our second webinar of the summer, PepLink, our other main equipment provider that we use, talking about unbreakable connectivity. And Bo already touched on some of the speed fusion and SD-WAN functionality, like WAN smoothing and other technologies that exist with PepLink, and particularly for mobile solutions, and really being able to always have connectivity as you move across geographies, and being able to seamlessly go from one carrier to the other because they're all loaded in there, all active. Fantastic solutions. Again, I encourage you to go back, listen to that webinar. Think about your customers' needs. And today, most of your customers, if not all, are using many, many hosted applications. And having their primary internet go down is catastrophic, really, I mean, that's not too big of a word, to their business. They simply cannot function because so many of their applications reside in the cloud and they require connectivity to get there. And that having that wireless backup, having that assuredness that not only is it going to work, but it's going to work well enough to perform everything, to have the speeds and the capacity they need to reach those applications, to pass the amount of data that's going back and forth to the cloud from their premise or from remote works stations or from mobile offices. It's really a powerful technology, and there is a big, big difference between what we do as a company and the thought that goes into providing a solution ahead of time than many providers out there who have a 4G or wireless solution as sort of an ancillary product to their primary business. And to use an example, there are cable companies out there that say, oh yeah, here's your business internet cable, and for an extra few bucks we can provide you with a 4G backup. Well, great. That's probably going to work. It will get a signal from the carrier, but is it the right solution for that customer? Will it be robust enough? Will it be able to really keep that business up and running, or is it going to be severely limited because it is what it is? It's an inexpensive way to connect to a wireless carrier, but it really doesn't do what you need it to do. And that's where I think BroadSky has excelled, and that is just in our engineering group, coming alongside you, making sure that you're getting the right solution for your customer, and that it's going to work. And I think that's the part that partners who come back to us and do business with us over and over again, they know that's going to happen, that their customers are going to be happy. And as a partner, I know you guys don't want anything more than that. You want your customer to be happy and not to come back to you and ask, why did you recommend these guys? And I think that's the feedback we get so often, is that our partners are pleased because their customers are pleased. And a large part of that has to do with deploying the right equipment for the right solution. So take a look at those two webinars. Cradlepoint and Peplink both co-presented with us, and there's some great information in there. I think you'll find that useful. And we'll go to the next slide, Tom. And I just want to touch on real quick, why you should be selling wireless. And I think the most important one, it's actually, I'm going to jump to number 4 there just to lead off with that. Today's technology is really good. I mentioned it before, 4G LTE, advanced technology is good. It works really well. It meets the requirements for a lot of different business solutions. And if you aren't well versed in that today, and you're sitting around saying, well, when 5G is ready and when it's more widely deployed, I'll jump into 5G because I know that I'll need to do it at that time. You're not doing yourself, you're not doing your customers a service. Learn this stuff now, get good at it now, be the expert so that when 5G is ready, your customers are already leaning on you as their wireless expert and trusted advisor. That I couldn't emphasize that more, because this 5G evolution, it will come in stages. Just like 4G slowly replaced 3G and became better and better over time, 5G will see the same thing, and it's going to happen over the next few years, not the next few months. And so there are plenty of opportunities today for you to go in and earn more of your customers' wallet share. If you're already selling terrestrial networks, you should absolutely be in there talking about wireless backup, talking about mobile solutions that Tom covered at some length today. So there's plenty of opportunity out there. We're seeing it obviously in our in the objective measurement of being on the Inc. 5000 list now 4 years in a row. It's because this technology is getting better and better, and BroadSky is doing a great job of deploying it and deploying the right solution for your customers. So that's a big one. Don't wait. Don't wait to get good at this stuff. Obviously, there's rapid market growth. We're seeing it in oil, gas, restaurants, even during COVID when they're closed. They've been still expanding in many areas. Retail, as Tom mentioned, and the financial vertical, we're seeing great growth there as well. Certainly, wireless integrates with all WAN environments. We have very purposefully not aligned ourselves with any one SD-WAN provider because the wireless technology plays so well with all of the technologies that are out there, and we have experience in deploying wireless alongside the likes of Velo and Big Leaf and Ariaka and the others, that we didn't want to limit ourselves in that way. So if you're selling SD-WAN, make sure that you understand how wireless can enhance that, how it can benefit it, and frankly, what some of the potential stumbling blocks are there. So, and our channel managers and our engineering team is well versed in talking you through that. The other one that we haven't touched on today, Lte Pot Replacement. As you know, copper is being retired across the country. We're trying to do a good job of helping our partners see when the LEX file for retirement of facilities in a particular area. We try to get that information out to partners in that area so that they can be readily identifying opportunities to go in and use LTE as a POTS replacement solution. And there's some good webinars also recorded on our website that is available to you to get you an introduction to that, or talk to your channel manager about that product as well. We see that as a great growth opportunity in the remainder of this year in 2021 for sure. And then I'll just repeat myself. Today's speeds are fast. You can absolutely power today's business applications with wireless today in a lot of different applications or different solutions. So don't miss out. If you're not selling wireless today, you absolutely should be. Be ready for 5G. We will pledge to keep you educated on that, keep you up to date on the status of 5G availability, and when and where you're going to be able to take advantage of it, and allow your customers to take advantage of it as well. So that's all I have. I wanted to thank you again for your time, and thanks for having attended this webinar series. If you haven't seen the other two or one of the other two, make sure you get online and listen in on that recording, and some great information in there. I think Maureen has our raffle and some other things to wrap up. But thanks again for being here, and hope to see you guys soon at some event, in the future, whenever that might be. Thanks.
Whenever that might be. Thanks, Ron. Well, as with all things Broad Sky, everyone else does the work, and then Maureen gets to do the fun stuff.
It's the way it should be.
It's the way it is.
The way it should be.
Yeah.
Yep. Appreciate that, Tom. Yeah, I get the 2 fun slides, so this is great. Thanks, guys. Awesome presentation. Again, I'm not going to reiterate. They all said it all. So wireless is really where it's at. And so we want to incent the partners really to sell more. We want to make it more lucrative for you to bring in these deals. So we have a pretty great, we've always done one spiff. Sometimes we've done a spiff choice, but this is stackable, which is pretty cool because you can earn even more money. So we have our standard spiff, which is 1 times MRC, really minimum 5 locations on a 2-year deal or more. We cap it at 10 grand, but so if you bring in a big deal, you can earn $10,000 up to $10,000 on that one spiff. You can stack these other 2 spiffs. So we have really 3 spiffs that you can earn. First 10 deals from new partners, same criteria, 5 locations, 2 years or more, you get $500 per deal. So you add that to your 1 times MRC, and then we have an industry accelerator, which is pretty exciting. So based on how many sites they have, minimum 2-year term, this is 10 plus locations as a minimum. And it has to be within one of our industry accelerators verticals, qualified verticals. PS, I'm pretty sure all your customers qualify for one of these verticals. Don't tell anybody. Retail, healthcare, banking, finance, oil, gas, renewable energy, quick serve restaurants. That pretty much covers almost all the customers that I've been working on. So you can earn anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000. So really, if you hit these all three or even two, for a large deal, you can earn an additional $15,000. Maybe less, but that's pretty exciting. So we'd love to pay you, and that's really what we're rolling this out. So talk to your channel managers, about any questions you have or the criteria if you want to slide. But we would love to pay this out and get these deals in for you and get those that revenue going for you.
BroadSky has a regional support model, and so these are your regional support people. Please call them based on the area that you sit or your company headquarters sit, I guess, not where your opportunity is. Jim in the Northwest, Ash in the Midwest, Kevin in the Northeast, Todd in the Southeast, and Maureen in the Southwest. And if we're close, we can get out to you, and we're looking forward to seeing everybody whenever that's possible. But until then, we'll be in virtual mode, I guess. Yeah, nobody knows what's going to happen there. So this time we're going to go to the Q&A, and the way I'm going to do this is I'll go to the Q&A section first, and then I'll move over to the chat side. Either way, if something sparks your interest on the Q&A, just lob it in there. We'll answer all questions, but I'll start on the Q&A side, and we'll go from there. Dan asked, what speeds are you getting when you do that 4-line bundle? Average, not peak, and rough cost. Well, what are we saying? I know there's been advances on this. What are we saying on 4 SIM download?
The average is, the carrier averages on the Cat 18 modems we see in the 40 to 50s. So multiply that by 4 for that type of hardware. Now, anecdotally, at my location, I get a 50 by 50, but I also don't get great signal where I'm at. I'm in a hole. So that's really good for me looking at the total combination of what the carriers can offer up individually.
If you were just on one SIM, where would you be at?
One SIM, Cat 18 modem in that 40 to 50 download range, and in the 10 to 20s up is kind of the national average that we're seeing. Obviously subjective to area.
And then rough costs. One of the reasons that we have, Dan, the deployment option of 2 versus 4 is that you are climbing the ladder on cost. So the appliance that bonds 4 together retails for like $6,000. We will rent that to you, and it's worth noting that BroadSky will do no CapEx options for everything. So we'll bundle it all in. So acquiring equipment is not something that customers need to do. All costs go to that. We take care of it. It's also fully warranted perpetually as long as they're a BroadSky customer. And then full support comes along with that. The cost on an HD4, I think the upfront is $1,500 for the setup fee, and you get the equipment out there. And then the 100 gig data plan is $1,200 a month. So it has to be a valuable asset to connect this to in order to incur those costs. Cost is a factor here, obviously. Speed is fun, but it has to make economical sense to do this. The HD2 you can get into for less than that. The data costs are similar, but I think the upfront is less. And then the one that just switches back and forth between the two but doesn't bond together, there's no extra CapEx on that at all. The monthlies are a little bit higher, but not much. So isn't that just the way it is? I turned that off too. So that's the rough cost estimate. What I would do is reach out to your channel manager, ask them about the specific application, get the right gear attenuated to it so that we're not kind of overkilling. As much as we love to put out really cool technology, it's got to make sense. Okay, that was on the Q&A side, and I'm going to go over to the chat side. Okay, and those were those were people saying that they won, et cetera, et cetera. And Scott said, sweet, thanks. So those are all the questions that came in, and I hopefully we've answered those or given some value as to where we can apply wireless to solutions going forward. If it was me, I would focus on my 1 gig fiber circuits and bringing in a backup circuit that can handle the traffic load when that 1 gig goes down. That's an easy entry point. Having a 1 gig fiber circuit and putting all your stuff up into the cloud, and then having a 20 meg or 10 meg upload at best, kind of cheap router performance, that really isn't failover anymore. Whereas a wireless connection that can run 100, 150, 200 meg down and 40 to 60 meg up, and also, of course, you can't cut it and you can't flood it, that's real diversity. So that's an easy entry point to start talking about this. And then inevitably, you're going to start moving across people who are moving, or people who are taking their business on site somewhere else and are not allowed onto the internet, in which case they can bring us along with them to run their business. Those are the 3 areas that just over and over and over again, we find are the entry points for wireless internet. And then once you experience it and you see it, and frankly, the commission checks are coming through, you'll find that this is something that's repeatable. And you can keep rolling out to your client base and it becomes just part of your portfolio. Okay, I don't see any more questions on either side. Thank you all for joining, and please stay tuned for our next invite as we come out for our webinar series in October on topics of wireless and how you can apply it to your sales portfolio. Thank you so much.